Welcome to another exciting episode of Behind the Sirens SA. I am your host, Langton Ndlovu. Today, we are taking you to a global adventure with a special guest who started his career in emergency medical services here in South Africa and now is soaring high as a flight paramedic in Saudi Arabia. Please join me as I welcome Mr. Langton Ndlovu with a round of applause. It is such an honor to have you with us today. How are you doing?
I'm quite all right. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me over to your podcast. And I think it is quite a pleasure and an honor to be invited by you.
That's great to hear. So your story is actually truly inspiring, and thank you for honoring the invite and blessing us into the show with your presence. I actually can't wait for our listeners to hear about your incredible journey from streets of South Africa, as I said, guys, to the skies of Saudi Arabia. So let's start from the beginning and just have a bit of the music and we'll proceed. So we'll start with the South African Foundation. So the first question is, was it always a passion of yours, or was there a specific moment that drew you into emergency medical care?
So I'd generally say that it was more of a passion that I felt when I was very young. I think it started off in grade 8. There was an incident that happened in a place where I live by, which was Johannesburg CBD. I was hanging out with one of my friends, and there was just an accident that happened. So I went in there, assisted the guy who was actually bleeding from the leg. So without even thinking about it, I was like, you know what, let me just go jump straight and then start helping the guy out. That was just before we even called emergency medical services. So based on that, I helped the guy out. Most of my friends didn't really want to do anything about that. They're like, no, we're not touching blood. We're not doing anything. Mind you, I never even had gloves or anything like that. And then the second build up towards that was, so my father passed on in 2008. He had pneumonia. So I felt as if I failed him, but then I was like, you know what, in order for me to actually pay him off, I don't know if that makes sense, I want to do something that is going to help people out in the future, whether it is my family members or it's not my family members.
Oh, that's very brave. You know, we'll forgive you that you treated a patient with no gloves. You didn't know then, but it's very brave of you, and it's actually relatable. You know, to say you managed to help save a life without even knowledge, and now you're doing it professionally. So that's quite interesting. The next question is, I'm sure the listeners would like to know about how did you first then got into emergency medical care after having that and living in CPD. I'm sure guys, you know the situations in CPD. Only the toughest survives the space in the first place, but he's here and he's shining. So how did you first got into emergency medical care now?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that you've spoken about in terms of requirements on your previous episodes, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, for the people that are in high school at the moment, they need to do obviously the sciences, your physical sciences, life sciences, or biology, mathematics, and all of that. That was the stream of subjects that I was actually following at the time when I was in high school. So when I applied, funny enough, emergency medical care was my first option. But podiatry was my second option, and I didn't really know what podiatry was all about up until I got more research and everything. But I said to myself that I want to do something which is medical related, but I don't want to be sitting in an office or being stuck in a hospital. So that's the reason why I chose emergency medical care. So I applied with the University of Johannesburg, which was the closest institution close to me since I live in Joburg. There's still other institutions like your DUT, the University of Technology, Cape Peninsula, and going forward. So I applied, got into the UJ, all the subjects that I did when I was in high school. Those were the subjects that were actually required. Got into the UJ, and the journey will begin. I will tell you more about it. I'm sure you probably have more questions into how we went about it. Yeah, so
Yes, yes. And to the listeners, we're still gonna go deeper as the episodes go on. So please, if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe to Behind the Sirens SA. Tell the others who are interested in the career. Tell those that are still in high school and looking forward to join EMS, because we're still gonna go deeper into all the requirements and how do you go about it. Doesn't matter where you are. You can be from Joburg, you can be from rural areas. It doesn't determine whether you can join or not, that I can assure you. But we're not there today. So let's jump into the second question. What was it like working in South Africa as an emergency care practitioner? Like, if you guys haven't got it or you maybe forgot, he is an emergency care practitioner and a flight paramedic working in Saudi Arabia. What was it like working in South Africa as an emergency care practitioner?
Interesting. Working in South Africa as an emergency care practitioner was quite interesting. South Africa is a unique and diverse country, that's one thing for sure. And I know a lot of people are not really much aware about the EMS and everything that goes on outside on the emergency medical care perspective. From my side, it was nice, first of all, because I had a family from the place that I worked in. So I worked in Soweto and Mufulhu under Gauteng Provincial Government, GPG, EMS. It was easy for us to integrate together, and based on that, it was very easy for me to, interact or, in fact, manage and cope on the calls or the missions that we were sent to, because we had that togetherness. So it was very easy. Also, what was interesting is the cases that we saw, or in fact, the cases that I saw all the time. You see everything that you guys think that you see on movies. I used to see this live. Like, I'm talking about 2 a.m. in the morning, 3 a.m. in the morning, or at any time of the day. I will tell you more about the cases as we go on. Don't want to be too long with that, but it was interesting. And I would come back and work here again. Don't get me wrong. I still love South Africa. I still love South African EMS, and I'm up for it.
Yes, with that being said, we're also more interested a bit about your experience in South Africa. So, can you share a memorable experience that shaped you early in a career? I know you qualified at UJ, which takes 4 years, you all, and after that, you went straight to the streets. But I want that one experience that you will never forget, that shaped you to be a specialist that you are now. Because, guys, being a flight paramedic, it's not just anything. You have to be, it's a specialty, if I may put it that way. So I want him to tell you more about, like, what is that one case that shaped his career?
Yeah, right. It's interesting what you're saying, because there's quite a lot of cases that have shaped me up. But one of the most unique cases that I can say is, so I started working at GPG around about 2020, post-qualifying and all of that. I would say one thing to you guys, which is very interesting. It's a company whereby it's very huge, and there's quite a lot of cases that they do at their emergency care practitioners or the advanced life support providers are very much, professional, and they know their stuff very well. But anyway, not to bore you on that. So this is how we started off. Started off in Mufulhu. So GPG divides 2 vehicles. There's the intensive care unit vehicle and the rapid response vehicle, right? So I was still a little bit fresh. I mean, I had a little bit of experience, but I never really interacted with any critical care patients. So as GPG as it was, they threw me into the deep end. They're like, hey, listen, here's your ICU pass, go for it. Here's a case. So I started off with neonates, so it's basically, small kids from birth up until like 28 days or 1 month. Neonates actually have quite a lot of, challenging medical problems, like your respiratory issues or cardiac issues and all of that. But anyway, the case that I had was very simple. The child was very tiny, though. That's one thing that I'll tell you guys. 900 grams, you can imagine how small that is. So they send me throughout. It's 2 a.m. in the morning. I've been sleeping. I'm a little bit tired. I go to the case. It's a clinic case. There's no doctor. I find nurses busy resuscitating. They're like, listen, we want an ALS to be here. I get there. The baby is blue. We resuscitated the baby up until the baby got pink. We're like, okay, cool. Everything is sorted, all happy and all of that. Started transporting the baby. Now, mind you, I'm at the back on my own.
Now you are in charge. Basically,
charge, right?
it's all up to you now.
Exactly. So the child is stabilized according to the interventions that we've done. All of a sudden, I'm at the back of the ambulance. I'm happy the child is stable and all of that, and I was not really paying attention. So we intubated the child, by the way. I don't know if Nomti has explained what intubation is.
Yeah, they'll get it. They'll need to stick around to learn all these terms, guys. Hlala nathi, don't leave this show. At the end of the day, you'll understand. And as the show goes on, you'll understand all these terms. We'll try not to be as more technical as possible. And yeah, but I'm sure if you've been here, you know what is intubation. If you're not sure, you will see as the time goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, it was at night. My partner is driving. Well, of course, it's at night, limited vision and everything. I don't know what happened. I also just lost focus for a bit. And before you know it, the child got extubated. The tube came out.
Are you sure was it not speed humps? You know, in South Africa, we have a lot of speed humps. So it was probably one of the speed humps
It
because...
was definitely one of the speed humps or something that happens because, you know, they throw stones into the streets and everything, right?
Yes.
But anyway, child got extubated and the child just turned blue again. And now I'm at the back of the ambulance on my own and I'm like to my partner, okay, we're 15 minutes away from Bara. Into the child in the maternity unit. I don't know if you should come and help me a little bit or you should just drive as fast as you can. He drove as fast as he could. I took there's something that they call the bag valve mask ventilator device. I took that, started bagging the child. Mind you, the child is very tiny. The mask is very tiny as well. So literally it's covering the entire face on the child. I'm trying to, you know, provide air or ventilation to the child to help the child breathe. And I see those tiny lungs going up and down,
Wow.
up and down, up and down, up and down. But the child is blue, and he is taking his time to transition into getting pink, is how I found him back at the hospital. I don't want to be offensive, but I literally shit my pants. It was very...
It's hectic. It's one of the critical decisions that we actually make in EMS, and it was all up to you. I can't imagine.
Absolutely. But I mean, what was on my thoughts was, what happens if this child actually, you know, demises? Because, I mean, there's something that has happened. So I had to give it my all in order to try and provide for the child. Well, lucky enough, we got to the hospital with the child and the child started, you know, picking up and started being active and everything. But I was sweating out. I was like, this is my very first day on the ICU bus. And this was the very first case that I got. And it was a good experience, but also at the same time, it was nerve-wracking as well.
Yes, and the good thing is that you didn't just freak out and do nothing. You stick to the basics. So just to be clear, he was not wrong, but it was just one of those things, as I said, you guys. In other shows, I told you, we have to do a lot of critical thinking and decision-making. So it was basically for you a matter of, are you stopping and intubating again, or you just sticking to the basics, which is BVM, and get the patient to hospital, because definitely that child needed an ICU more than spending more time on the road. But yeah, you did well for the first case. That is pretty much amazing, and I can't imagine how stressful you were. But we're glad that experience shaped you to who you are today, and that's the real stories we want to hear. We don't want to give people an impression that you were like this, you were a good practitioner forever, you always knew what to do. We know you always have to do decisions, critical decisions, question yourself whether you've done right or you've done wrong. But the fact that you were trained, you stick to what you've trained for, and you love this profession, which is also, I'm sure, it helped you in order to keep on going. So we thank you for that.
100%, thank you.
EMS in South Africa is known for its unique challenges. So what are some of the hurdles you faced working on the ground here, and how did that prepare you for the future?
Okay, great question actually. So I would say there's quite a lot. The first one is safety. I worked in Soweto. Soweto in general was not known for safety or any other areas in and around South Africa. So that's the issue. That's one of the challenges, more especially when it comes down to night shift. We got sent into hostels where there's, shootings or whatever the case is and all of that. So most of the times we would ask, for police escort, but would hardly get police escort. I mean, we would get maybe one van or whatever the case is, or they come after a long time, of which you get there, patient is already dead, obviously if it's, gunshots and all of that. But the main issue is that even though you went with the police, they were still scared to get into those areas. And so for us, then it became a challenge in order to assess those areas where the patients actually needed us or the people that actually needed us. The other thing that I'd say, obviously not to speak about myself per se, but sometimes the ambulances, they pay 2 women on their own. And you can just imagine how unsafe that is for them to go to different areas at night or even at any time during the day, because people do, take advantage and all of that. That's just one on safety. The second one, I'd say, it depends on the different structures or the EMS systems that you're in. I mean, I was in the government side.
Yes.
Sometimes we'd have, challenges with, certain equipment. I mean, GPG provided us with everything, but there are in times where you needed the most, critical equipment like your ventilator or your cardiac monitors, and you find out that they've been taken out for service, and that takes like a week or 2 weeks to come back. So which means we had to then use some of the cheaper equipment that they'd, procured prior to buying the more expensive ones.
Yes.
And the false negatives that those machines will give you was a big problem. So you might think that you're still treating your patient, and I'd make an example with the blood pressure that everyone knows about. You're expecting 120 over 80.
Yeah.
But it tells you that you have 80 over 40, and that is actually not true. So that was just one of those challenges.
Okay,
sorry, yes.
just to interrupt, I think that's where then your education comes into place, because you basically know that if patient is experiencing this, you kind of have expectation in terms of what will be the blood pressure, what will be the heart rate, and which is good, guys. That's why I'm saying this profession, we are trained, and the fact that you're able to pick up that this might be not correct, maybe the machine has a fault, you need to have learned about it and understood what is it. So, which is quite great. And in the point that he just spoke about, safety is still a big issue in South Africa, especially for emergency medical services, and people still want service to be provided, but they're not keeping us safe. So please do keep us safe. And let's hear more.
Okay, absolutely. So I just wanted to highlight on the point that you said. So the focus is you treat the patient, not the monitor.
Yes.
So what Nomthandazo just said just now, you just have to focus on what your patient presentation is, and then just try and adhere towards that with your treatment. And then the other challenge that I had, or rather that I know is very much of something that is very common, most of the emergency care practitioners or the ALSs that you find on the road are mostly young people. We're still coming out, we're fresh. Some are like 21-year-olds rather, or 22, or whatever the case is.
Yes.
Then you get a challenge that you're working with people that are older than you and that are less qualified than you are, which then becomes a problem because they come to you and they say, listen, we've been working in the EMS for 20 years.
We know
just
this.
Because you came with your 4-year degree doesn't matter to us. And this is not about, egos or saying I'm bigger than you or whatever the case is.
Yes.
We just have to work together in order to, to help the community and everything. So I know with other people, it's a problem because Okay, so I'm gonna be told by a 30-year-old what this is. I mean, come on, you don't tell me that. So that's just one of those things that if you come into the EMS, you might have such a challenge, but you
Yes,
can
yes.
try and iron that out with the people that you work with. You know, you learn to be mature very quickly.
Yes, okay. That is great because actually I can understand. They think you just knew and you're not sure about what you're doing. But with the EMS, we are a family. So those misunderstandings, I'm sure they do get sorted out. And thank you for
Oh, I
answering.
just have one more to
Okay,
say.
okay. We are
So,
here to listen,
yeah,
yes, we're
absolutely,
here to learn. Thank
absolutely.
you so much.
All right. So guys, I know people that are not in the EMS and probably not into like, you know, in hospital setting. They're not very much aware of this. The relationship between pre and in hospital medicine is not actually how it seems like it. We've got a bit of a gap because sometimes the nurses or the doctors might not understand what we did on the road. And we feel that, hey, listen, this is what we did. But because of the different qualifications and all of that, we can have a certain patient that gets treated in a different manner or gets different interventions that are done to them. That is just merely based on the qualification of that person that came and assisted. So based on that, most of the doctors or most of the nursing staff would say, all the patients, you guys are just bringing, half-baked patients in the sense that you did not do your treatment fully. But it was just only our BLS providers that, helped out the patient. Then an ALS or ECP comes and treats the patient, and then they say, you're actually better than the other paramedics. And that is actually not true. It's because of the different divisions that we have. And that's one thing that is a challenge because it's not only a challenge for emergency care practitioners, but for other, emergency care providers like your BLSs, your ILSs, that then get into the hospital and get scolded out by the nurses or the doctors as to why didn't you do this, why didn't you do that, and they're just, not qualified to do those certain interventions. So that's one of the things that needs to be ironed out, actually.
Yes, that's actually why we're having this show. That's why we have this podcast now, which is Behind the Sirens, because we're going to be unmasking all those stories, all those issues, so that at least at some point we on one page. And I think I did mention before that you'll find that even the professional people that's supposed to know about us, they have no clear understanding of what we're capable of. But I hope as we have Behind the Sirens now, they can watch and they can learn more about what emergency medical service is about in general, whether BLS up to emergency care practitioner, even master's level, because we're going far.
Exactly.
So we're moving now to you, a transition to Saudi Arabia. So please tell us, like, what motivated you to make the leap from South Africa to Saudi Arabia?
All right. Well, at first, I will say more than anything, we all love money, so that's a financial thing. But on a serious note, though, I mean, apart from the financial hurdles that we have in South Africa, it was more of a career growth move for me more than anything else. I mean, I worked here as, emergency care practitioner specializing in ICU and also advanced life support and taking care of literally almost each and every patient. So the move to Saudi came about with I'm also an aviation enthusiast. So I saw an opportunity that, you know what, listen, there's a company outside of South Africa that provides both fixed wing emergency services and also helicopter emergency medical services.
Okay. So was it a tough decision to leave your home country?
Absolutely, it was a tough decision for me to leave my home country because I was literally leaving everything that I knew and going to start off a new life, a fresh life as an adult. and
I can
without
imagine.
any support, family support or anyone else. So I had to try and find my feet when I got there.
What was your first impression when you arrived and working in Saudi Arabia as a flight paramedic? Was it anything that you expected?
Okay, so my first impression was not really what I expected because from social media, we are told, or in fact, what I got out was Saudi Arabia is not safe, Saudi Arabia is desert and all of that. So I got to Saudi Arabia and I was dumbfounded because it was a different thing. Saudi is beautiful, it has got quite a lot of attractions and everything, and it is generally safe. But to put the point out as a flight paramedic, there's such a huge, cultural difference as opposed to the culture that we know of in South Africa. So, for example, I'll just comment on, say, just like, normal greeting and all of that. Normally, if I'd get to shift back in SA, would greet each other, maybe hug each other or, fist bump or whatever and all of that, that closeness and everything. But in Saudi, it is very different in the sense that, even if you're working with a female colleague, you can't just come and hug them or whatever the case is. You can't even handshake most of them. I'd say 90% of them. So you'd barely get that, handshake and all of that. So you just have to greet, hi, how are you? That's just about that. And that's where the difference is. And if you remember, I did say earlier on that South Africa was not safe for, the what is this, female emergency care practitioners or advanced life support providers. Saudi is a different story. They are very safe that side. But however, what the company tries to do is make sure that they pair a male ECP with the female ECP. So that works quite relatively easier for in that particular sense. But also, I mean, we're flying most of the times. The places that we land into in order to assist the patients that we are sent to, there'll generally be, a huge police presence that is there. So you'll never land in an unsafe area at all at any time. So you're always sorted, roundabout. So additionally, also treating female patients back in Saudi is a different ball game on its own. We are not allowed, to treat patients or in fact to assess female patients in the sense of, there's sometimes things that they call in medical terms palpating. So, trying to touch someone and all of that. That is frowned upon. So if there's a female patient at any particular incident, there needs to also be a female paramedic who's going to help that female patient out.
Interesting.
Because if the female patient is there along with their husband or whatsoever, even if the husband is not there, but the general public on their own, they will not allow any male patient to touch any female patient in terms of, assessment and all of that. I mean, yes, you can apply a blood pressure cuff, you can insert an IV line or whatever the case is, but what we would normally do back in SA in the sense that it can be two ECPs or two emergency care providers that can, go and assist any patient, whether from a traumatic incident or from a medical perspective, or even doing the likes of, delivering a child. We cannot do that in Saudi Arabia. A female paramedic has to be there.
That is actually quite interesting. And that must have been such a culture shift about being in Saudi. And yeah, we it's interesting. Moving along, then we're gonna go to just your personal growth and reflections. Moving to a new country for work isn't easy. So tell us about how are you coping as a paramedic and as an individual?
I think that's actually a great question that you asked, Nomti. I must actually say that it might seem as if there's a lot of negatives into this, but there's quite a lot of positives. From a paramedic perspective or professional level perspective, I must say that I'm gaining quite a lot having moved over to this company. One, there's continuous, education and continuous learning and us developing ourselves into understanding much more better what, the aviation medical services is all about or pre-hospital care is all about. For example, so since I've been with the company, we've done quite a lot of courses, quite, normal courses that most of the emergency care providers will do whilst here in South Africa, like your BLS for healthcare providers whatsoever. However, since I was in Saudi, they sent me to the United States of America for 2 weeks to do a pediatric and neonatal critical care transport program course. That which has then, broadened my experience or knowledge into understanding how to treat kids. If you remember from the beginning, I did comment that I once, felt a little bit somehow
Yeah.
after treating my first neonate. But with the knowledge that has been provided to me now, I understand much more better. And then also the company, what they offer is, some might say it's a little bit irritating, but it's for the benefit of us.
Yes.
We get assignments every week. Like, it's not
Wow.
even a joke. Like, assignments after assignments. You come for training and all of that.
So
get me
they
wrong.
want to make sure that you're staying sharp, you're staying on top of the
Absolutely,
game,
absolutely,
which is quite interesting.
Yeah. So don't get me wrong. This is very beneficial because remember, if you are in an emergency care situation, you want to get people that are really screwed up and that have, all the knowledge and expertise into what they're doing. So the company does definitely provide that. And from a personal perspective, I must actually say it's a different country. It's a new country for me. I'm a person that loves traveling. And so for me, Saudi is nothing tormenting. One thing that I'll comment about is the weather. It's ridiculous. It's hot. I know, guys, you complain about the heat wave in South Africa and all of that. It's nothing. I'm talking about 48 degrees, 50 degrees
Yeah.
most of the times.
That's bad.
It's very bad. It's very bad. It's actually very bad for me to cope with that.
Yeah.
But I mean, apart from the weather being the most impact for my skin, which, I overreact all the time, I sweat all the time and all of that.
Yeah.
It's not very good. But apart from that, I still have friends, some of the colleagues that I have that side. So I don't feel lonely in that particular sense.
I'm sure that helps a lot.
Yeah, so it definitely does actually help a lot. And then obviously, I'd say the negative is, when you grow up in a certain area, then you start moving off, you always have, the feelings of that I'm leaving something that I've been used to and going into something that I'm not used to. So I always, all the time, miss my family. I miss them every day. I miss
can
my partner
imagine.
every day. It's hectic trying to cope with that, I think that's one of the things that you might have friends that side, but you still feel lonely because you don't have your close family members or your, like intimate family members as well, or like, partnership, as I said earlier.
Yeah,
But apart from that, it's all good.
It's quite understandable. It can't be that easy. It can't be easy at all. So moving along to the other question, we actually have a lot of questions for you. I think we might have to do this again as the show goes forward. So what do you miss most about South Africa?
Oh, I'm going to start off with a lame comment, my fellow South Africans. South Africa is interesting. Like, I mean, most of you guys, whether South African or non-South African, South Africa is interesting. I miss a lot of things. Well, first is the food. I'm talking about, I don't know if some of you guys would understand, inyama endlovu, no
Yes,
puthu.
yes.
The food, about chicken licking and all of that type of stuff. So the food, number one. And obviously, friends, family, as I said. As you can see, I'm wearing my Mercedes t-shirt. I'm a Formula One person. I'm a car enthusiast. My car's got downpipes and all of that. So I miss the driving. I miss driving long distances and everything. On the other side, there's no opportunity for us, to drive long distances because we're almost 24/7 all the time. That's the unfortunate part. And then to top it up, the music back at home, it's very nice. I mean, I also get introduced to, some Arabian music and all of that. What really sucks is that sometimes, you don't actually understand what they're saying because of language barriers and all of that, which is really something else that then, brings the person into saying, I look towards, hearing our music almost all the time. I wake up to it, during the day and I sleep to it. That makes me feel as if I'm at home, in the sense that as much as I do miss home all the time, but I still keep myself, busy with everything that is South African, And then, as I said again,
the food is an issue. I always buy at least 5 kilograms of milli meal, but once that is
Oh,
finished,
you
no
guys
more
don't
pap.
have meal in
There's no
Saudi?
milli meal in Saudi. They don't even know what that is.
Okay.
Tell me about
Amazing.
it.
How do you guys cope? Like, hayibo uphuthu nje.
We can't cope. We eat rice almost every day. It's rice all the time.
Oh, ayinisenkingeni shame
Sinking.
kumele siphinde sinisendele nimsendele guys impuphu ayikho impuphu eSaudi so cela nje nim exportele impuphu to Saudi.
Absolutely.
Which is
I'd
quite
appreciate
interesting.
that.
Yeah. So we're now moving along to lessons and advice because I'm sure we all want some advice from him. So basically for South African paramedics who might be considering working abroad, what advice would you give them?
Okay. So I'd say one or two things. The guys that just recently qualified, they need to attain at least 2 years experience on the road, whether from a from a response vehicle perspective or from ICU. I know with different companies, they graduate people in a different manner. So like private companies might say, for example, you need 2 years experience and then you can have your next 2 years in ICU or whatsoever. It depends. And then with government, as I said earlier, that we got thrown into the deep end. So I started my first job. That time I was already doing ICU and ALS at that time, and that helped me to actually grow. So 2 years experience is quite important. And I don't know if you can see behind the scenes, there's some books that are there. So your basic life support for healthcare providers, pediatric and advanced life support, and then PELS, BLS. You need to also do ACLS as well. Then there's also ITLS or International Trauma Life Support. In Saudi and in other countries, they do pre-hospital trauma life support. One and the same thing, but their companies expect those two things. But if you want to then follow the journey of being a flight paramedic, you need to then add on top of your ICU road ops experience into flight experience. So you can go to certain companies here in South Africa that will offer locums and all of that. You can try and work with those people, and based on that, it depends on whatever company that you are applying for. They might say, listen, we need 6 months or 1 year or 2 years flight experience whatsoever in order for you to join them. So the company that I work for, I don't know if I did say previously, so they do both of the things that, you work on hams and you also work on, fixed wing as well. So some companies might say you only have hams experience.
Then just work on hams.
Just work on hams on its own. Then some companies might say, listen, let's see when you integrate with your with your process onboarding with the company. Then from then they might potentially just put you as a trainee with their dry down to fixed wing. Then you can go on with that. And then apart from that, that's just about that. I don't know if there's anything else that you can add on top of what I said.
No, that's actually quite interesting. And as I said, we will still go to the exact requirements for people who want to go there, who want to go abroad. Yeah. We'll get a guest again that will just speak about that. So moving along, are there any skills or experiences that you got here in South Africa and gave you a unique edge in your role in Saudi?
Yeah, I'd say absolutely. One of the skills that obviously I think you understand why I'm laughing. Most ECPs are sort of like honored with its rapid sequence intubation. I think you've previously, talked about that in your previous
just
episodes.
A little bit, and we're still gonna talk about it. Yes,
absolutely. But anyway, the reason why I'm saying this, in Soweto, for example, there was quite a lot of patients that would see from pedestrian vehicle accidents or even motor vehicle accidents, sustaining head injuries or traumatic brain injuries.
Yes,
that needed us to then facilitate them with that intervention in order to help them out. It's not treatment, but in order to support them.
Yes.
So that they get sorted out in hospital. So Saudi has quite a lot of road traffic accidents,
and we do get quite a lot of those people that have got head injuries and severe head injuries. So the RSI skill that obviously I got from Soweto or from South Africa really is helping me quite a lot when it comes down to that, because no jokes, we almost RSIing like maybe 3 to 4 patients in a week.
And it's quite a aggressive skill, and you need to be knowing what you're doing, especially in Saudi. I know, and I've heard that they're very vigilant about their medications and stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. So you need to also, like, have your stuff and have your head screwed around and your stuff. And then the second one I'd say is neonatal care. So one thing about Saudi is that they've got a different, learning structure compared to us. That we do our 4 years, but we've got I think half of the year, within our 4th year, we do neonatal care and pediatrics for quite some time. With Saudi, they don't actually get to do that. They do that when they send us off to America, as I said, for that pediatric and neonatal critical care program. So I think from my side, having had quite a lot of experience, or rather exposure, from Soweto and the other places that I went to during my time here in South Africa, there was quite a lot of pediatric and neonatal care transfers that I did. And because of that, when they sent me to the course, it was more of a refresher for me, as opposed to starting something all over that I didn't know of. And also, like, during the transfers that we do, because they have a lot of neonatal cases. I'm talking about quite a lot. Heart problems, like inborn heart problems or congenital heart defects, your respiratory issues and all of that. So to me, not to brag or talk anyhow, it's almost coming like a piece of cake.
Yeah, because you've done this. For you, it came like a second nature, and
Yeah, absolutely.
and you excelling in it. And I believe you're good in what you do. That's quite interesting.
I believe so too. I must actually say that the patients that I've treated, they speak for me. I cannot speak for myself. At least I've had, quite a lot of saves. That's one thing that I can say, yeah.
So I think you guys now have an idea of what paramedics or just emergency medical care as a career is capable of. We're capable of a lot of things, and I cannot convince you guys more, which is why I have guests like this that will tell you these are real stories. They are not made up. It's what they do. It's what they live for. It's their career, And let's take us to, we want to know what's next for you. Do you see yourself continuing in Saudi, or is there another adventure in the horizon that you still want to take on?
Yeah, absolutely. So before I actually answer that question, I had something just coming up to my mind. You mentioned way before that, remember, guys, we're not ambulance drivers. So I'm actually asking myself, since I work in aviation, what am I? Am I a pilot now? Definitely not.
Definitely not.
Definitely
but,
not. Yeah. But it's the work that we do. So it just depends on the different environments or the settings that we're in, and we provide the care that we provide according to our qualifications.
Yes.
But anyway, let me not digress. So what's in store for me?
Yes, what's next,
Yeah. So anyway, the company that I'm in, we've got, a just culture, it's a family, and I feel like I belong, and everyone knows they belongs. It's almost like, that brother and sister relationship, as much as we didn't know each other, but we just created that bond. And as I said earlier, that, there's quite a lot of opportunities for us to enhance and grow within our career. So I still see myself, in Saudi probably for the next, maybe 4 years or 5 years. And of course, as we grow, there's going to be, new challenges that come through, or like, family, getting up to a family and all of that,
Yes.
So that
you gotta come back
change.
home.
Yeah. So that might actually change my perspective that, okay, cool, now I've got responsibilities and everything, so now I need to come back. It's not the same as when, it's just only adults on their own. Now if there's kids and everything, then we might need to change over. But yeah, I'm promising myself the next 5 years in Saudi. And hopefully I do come back and maybe see myself in another EMS setting or be impacting EMS in a different manner. We'll just see what is in stock for us.
Okay, that is quite interesting. Thank you so much, Langton Ndlovu, for blessing us with your visit, and for sharing your remarkable journey with us, because it is quite inspiring, moving from South Africa to Saudi Arabia, and you now this amazing flight paramedic. I'm sure our listeners would want to know more. So before we wrap up, where can our listeners follow your journey, or maybe just learn more about your experiences, or maybe just seek advice?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, of course, they could contact me on social media, but unfortunately, I'm not a very social media active person. So I'm sorry about that. But anyway, to get more information and all of that, guys, please just comment below on Behind the Sirens SA, and then you'll be able to get more info. And if there's anything or any questions that you guys might actually have for me, I'm very active on Nomti's page. So I'll definitely, write down in the comments or, reply back to whatever that you ask.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's perfect. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us. Let's give him a round of applause, please, because he's been an amazing guest today. Thank you for joining Behind the Sirens SA. Please make sure that you do subscribe and follow. Don't forget to comment so that we bring you inspiring stories like this one. Until next time, please stay safe and stay blessed.